Let's just do a bit of stretching before we stand. So in five repetitions. So reaching up with both hands first. Straightening and extending the spine. Each repetition, you just push it a bit further. And then one at a time. And then both together again. Pulling the head back this time. Trying to get it into the belly and the spine. So my lower back is really tightening to extend my hands up, and then I tighten the belly to pull the hands down. And then one at a time again. Going for the extension. Like you're ringing the bells in the church. You just grab the rope, and you have to use these muscles here and your belly muscles to pull the hand down, because it's difficult to pull it down. Both together again. And reach up grab that rope and I really have to pull from the belly. And now here I have to, like I'm trying to get underneath something and using my back to squeeze the hands up. And then I have to reach over the top of something to pull it down. One at a time again. Feel the extension coming from the little fingers, and my little fingers trying to reach up most. The little fingers like the scout. Because it's small and discreet, it can get to places the others can't. If you've got the stick there, you can use the stick here. We're just going to sort of pull and push. You don't need the stick. You can just link your fingers together. Pulling the hands apart, you're gripping with your fingers, but you've got a slight pull, as though you're trying to stretch the fingers out of their joints a little bit. Twisting the hands a bit. We're just working and trying to get movement into the chest cavity around the heart. And then just pushing the hands together. And pulling them apart again. We're just using a little bit of force to generate some energy that we just want moving around the body. And then pushing again. And one more pulling. The energy and the movement will want to go to places that are blocked. So we just have to keep it up. And then one more pushing. Again, if you've got the stick, use it. Twisting. And then let's just sit for a couple of minutes with the hands behind to get that place in the spine that tends to buckle and collapse. So we're aiming for a thymus that's really reaching upwards. The thinking mind is always heavy. Words are heavy. It's like, we want to be in that mode of listening for the pin drop. So there can't be any noise inside, otherwise you'll miss it. In yoga, they practice this by doing prayer posture, but behind. So your hands are aligned along the spine. I used to be able to do it. Back into prayer. So the upper chest wants to flare, wants to open up and reach up. So in one sense, my posture's like the spire of a church that directs the energy of the congregation upwards, but also like a funnel that's funneling energy down. So let's stand. Back to the down chin, mid-bang. Feel the legs coming out and then down. Really opening these hollows here, the leg pits. My knees are trying to work outwards, but so are my heels. So if I concentrate on the heels, then my toes will tend to come in. If I concentrate on the knees, my toes will tend to go out. Feel the sacrum hanging heavily, the tail wanting to unravel and extend downwards. And then let's just try and concentrate on the equivalent of this structure up here. You know, your min meng is the middle of your lumbar spine. So imagine you have a point on the middle of your cervical spine, the hollowest part of the neck. And so you have this place at the back of the head where the spine comes into the skull. So the occiput, that's like a sacrum that's reaching up. You've got a tail that's reaching upwards here. And that's working on the heart in the same way that concentrating on this area works on the Dan Chen. So my thymus is very much with the extension upwards, the suspension from the ceiling. Our main problem is the mind, the heavy thinking, chattering mind. So always trying to find little devices that will help quieten it down, lighten it up, really. So getting into ward of making this like the figure of 8 exercise. It's like you're wearing a cloak, like Batman or Superman, and you send the hand back and your little finger catches the edge of the cloak and brings it round. So you're dipping into this mass of energy behind you and teasing a little bit of it round to the front. This is how we want to use the mind. It's the imaginative mind. It's what the philosophers call imaginal reality. So it's like I see something in my mind's eye, and then I use the movements and the concentration to create it energetically. To riding horse. So it should feel really big. And it's like you want to sort of crouch down into it, almost like you're losing your neck because this enormous mass of energy behind you is just coming around. It's like it's hugging you from behind. And now let's just breathe. breathing with the lungs, but really it's the energy breathing, it's the body breathing, especially the spine. But slow, it's a slow breath. So it's more in the rhythm of the craniosacral rhythm than your normal breathing rate. The more we feel it, the more it will tend to come out of the legs. So this is what we have to be careful of. So I'm generating energy and I'm generating feeling, but my legs are pulling it down into the ground all the time. If the legs don't do that, then you'll float. The cardinal sin of Tai Chi. Our first connection all the time is with the ground, with the earth. Even before you put your hands on the other, you're touching the ground. Feel the energetic aspect of the ground. Physically, the ground is a hard surface, which I'm working upon. But energetically, it's like this enormous pit. The ground ungrounds. Belly pulling to draw the hands in. Lower back tightening. My body is working, quite hard, but the source of the energy is always the ground. So it's energy, but very much not chi, so very much spirit. It's from your craziness. So if spirit is Shen, whereas energy is chi, then what we do in these classes is really Shen Gong rather than Qi Gong. And now let's just move from leg to leg. What I want to feel now, or try and activate, is as I sink into one foot, I'm sort of loading this leg. It allows this one to open up because I've taken the weight off it. That's what I want to feel as I sink into this leg. This opens up, and I want to activate that. So it's an active opening because that's what reaches out to pull me back into it. So this is getting heavy and compressed. Now this opens up. It's similar to this one that we did with catching the cape, the cloak from behind. So my little toe is equivalent of my little finger, and it reaches out, but it's very much coming from a loosening in the sacrum. And this sense of spirit, this sense that something is waking up and coming out. And see that in order to open up here and allow this to reach, I really have to be able to sink and compress into the other leg. Which requires strength, but it also requires courage just to let myself down into this leg. And let the heel start coming up and the knee coming up to help this almost dissociate the hip bone from the sacrum. This is our wimpy equivalent of the sumo leg stamping, in sumo where they really lift one leg up in the air and then stamp it down on the ground. This is what's happening here. One leg is really supporting me, so the other one can reach up, and then that one connects to the ground and pulls the weight into it. Right. So I've got these big shoulders with my head sort of shrinking down into them, but I've also got these really big hips that my whole body is just sinking down into. And now let's move by straightening and bending the leg. So I straighten this leg and then I bend it. The straightening followed by the bending is a unit. So I want to feel that. The bending very much comes out of the straightening. And the straightening is very much a reaching, like when we were reaching up or when we reach forward. You're trying to get to something that's just a little bit too far away. That's the feeling. So you have to make a real effort. And then you catch it, and it's a real relief to pull back. So the return is already there in your mind when you do the extending. So you'd only reach for something if you knew you're going to get it so you could bring it in. Reach and pull. I'm reaching so that I can then bend. So I'm straightening the leg in order to bend it. And the bending will move me into it. But I'm also straightening this leg to drive me even more into this leg. So there's these two functions of the straightening. So this is getting ready to pull back, but it's also really driving me into this leg. So I can effectively get more than 100% into this leg because I've got my weight plus the effort of this straightening leg. And then that will allow this release across the sacrum even more. Sinking into this leg, but I'm also driving myself into it. There's various things that John said that sort of haunt me. One of them is, in Tai Chi, you need to become a pile driver. In those pile drives, and they're just banging down into the ground to make a big long hole. It's like that here. I'm driving myself into this foot. And you can only drive into one foot at a time. This is especially true in the form. And so when we finish a posture in the form, you're in one foot, normally the front foot, but sometimes the back foot. And so you don't I don't relax into the posture. I have to straighten this leg to drive myself down into that front foot. There's a point of sort of relaxation in the middle as the yield changes to an attack. But you want to get through that point as quickly as possible. I'm driving into this foot. And then this one pulls. And then there's this point in the middle where I swap over from one leg to the other. So I don't want to dwell there because it's deadly, that place. That's where you're going to get trapped if you're going to get trapped at all. Now let's just put it back. So the intensity with which we work whips us into a heightened awareness. We become more awake by practicing in this way. So again, it's very different from Qigong, which is all about working gently to connect with this, what they call a Qi field. So John, he really thought Qigong was basically a complete waste of time. Not only a waste of time, but he said it actually damages the spirit. It will actually send you to sleep rather than wake you up. And Dr. Qi thought the same. So Dr. Qi used to say, meditation and Qigong are a waste of golden time. Because they don't involve the other person. They don't involve touch, which to Dr. Qi, whose prime interest was in yielding, and also to John, who had the same interest. The touch is everything. The presence of the other person, listening. So real listening, not just imagining, not just listening to conjure this image of a field, which you're then basking in and soaking up and extending into. And now just let's straighten and bend the leg again, but now using it primarily to turn. So I straighten this leg and it turns me this way. And then I bend that leg. So I'm straightening the leg, but it's not the way we'd normally straighten. So if I want to straighten my arm, then I just tighten the tricep and it will straighten the arm. It's more like I'm extruding. It's like this peristaltic tightening around the muscles that extend the leg rather than a simple muscular action. I mean, it's in the hamstrings. The hamstrings are important. There's a sense of squeezing in order to straighten the leg. This is what we want. So squeezing, and then it will naturally pull back. And then just using the one leg to turn both ways. So extending this leg, bending the leg, extending the leg again, but now it becomes a front leg. And bending, straightening, bending, straightening, bending. And then the other leg, straightening, bending. Feel the leg that you're sinking down into. So for this leg to really be active in driving me into this leg, something here has to open up so that I can get through the leg and into the ground rather than simply balancing on top of the leg. And the same here. Something here has to open up so this channel is strong. this channel driving from this foot into this foot isn't properly open, then I'm always double weighted, even if I'm standing on one leg. If I'm not opening the hip and letting the energy just flow down through my body into the ground underneath my supporting leg, then I'm holding on. And it's difficult. We're so used to blocking that in order to give us a sense of solidity and security. It's why they say, you know, in spiritual work, you basically just have to let go of everything you hold dear, everything that you put your faith in, has to go so that a deeper reality can expose itself. And in a way, it's just allowing the two sides of the body to really dissociate. So you're not holding on fearfully. You're not holding yourself together. And now let's try bow and arrow. So there we were using the straightening and the bending to turn from side to side. Now we're going to use it to simply move forwards and back without too much turning. So I straighten the back leg. That drives me down into the front leg and turns me so that I'm square. And then I bend the back leg to pull myself out of the front leg. Now, before I can turn too much towards it, I start straightening the front leg to get myself back square. And that drives me strongly into the back leg. And then I bend the front leg, which will turn me into sort of riding horse, if you like. But before I get to the corner, I straighten the back leg. And then I bend the back leg and I straighten the front leg. I want to feel the four actions: straightening the back leg, bending the back leg, straightening the front leg, bending the front leg. They all feel different. The difficult phase is the straightening. Yeah, I'm straightening the front leg, and that's just driving me right down into the heel of this foot and into the ground. Then I bend the front leg, and then here I straighten. I want to try and get the back leg here as straight as I possibly can. And then the foot forwards. Single weighted. I have to make a real connection with this heel. And I use this leg straightening to do that. And then I have to connect with this heel. And again, it's this leg straightening. Something in me just has to let go so that both sides of the body can be doing their opposite things. One side just bending and supporting, the other side lengthening, straightening. If you can't dissociate the two sides of the body, then you'll never have speed. The trouble is that working slowly, we tend to get lazy. The mind wanders. And so in order for that to happen, something has to hold the two sides together artificially. It's like in that video of the Chinese guy doing the Tai Chi that I took last week. Suddenly he would just speed up, and it's almost like he's just sort of giving himself a good shake so that he can just be loose for what follows it. So John always used to say, when you practice Tai Chi slowly, it should really just be exactly what you would do if you were working incredibly quickly, but in slow motion. If anything, it's more intense because the energy is sort of drawn out. It's longer, so you need more of it. That guy, when he came into like a front foot, and when he do ward off, do a big step, but then as he came into the foot, he'd let this heel slide backwards to get an even longer extension so that he could get his back leg really straight. And you could see that when he's straightening the back leg and using the front leg as like a buttress to push against, it just squeezes the energy up into his heart. So through that form, there's a lot of this going on. There's a lot of heaving. So he's just working on his whole body energy. this sort of heightened awareness that we're looking for, a sense of sort of a charged spirit, is really just an opening, something in you just pings open, and suddenly you're just much more awake. But of course, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of concentration. The image that I use with my students is, so imagine you're sort of sitting there meditating. It's nighttime. You can't sleep, so you're sitting. You're sort of dozing off a bit. And suddenly you hear a sound. Yeah, there's something. And you're not sure what it is. But as soon as you hear that sound, it's not as though you have to think, oh, I wonder what that is. As soon as you hear it, you just spring, something in you just changes. Your hackles rise, fear enters the system in a really healthy way. It just wakes you up. That's what we want all the time in the work that we do. And let's try this equivalent of the leg stamping. So I come into this foot, so I'm using this leg, I'm driving myself into this foot, and then I just let this leg slide along the ground and up and out and down. I'm just aiming for this openness here, yeah? Takes a few rounds to get into it. Drape the foot along the ground and then up the leg and reach up and out. And some of those sumo guys, the ones that aren't that heavy, they can get the leg vertical. Okay, enough of that. And now bending and straightening again, or straightening and bending. Straight, bend, straight, bend. And then using it to pluck up the foot. So I bend this leg, and then I straighten this leg, and I just bend it again, but I use that to pluck the foot up rather than pull myself into it. And then I straighten it again to step out, bend it to pull myself into it, straighten this leg to drive myself completely into it, and then I can pluck up this foot. Straighten, bend, straighten, and bend. Straighten, bend, straighten, bend. Straight, bend, straight, bend, straight, bend, straight. Okay. Let's just try a little bit squatting. and just straightening a leg. The two legs, very different. The bent one will only properly bend and support if the straight one is properly straight. Again, that requires just releasing across the sacrum so I can allow the two legs to be opposites. If they're holding on to each other, they'll be too similar. There needs to be a space between them, and that's the sacrum. And then across into the other leg. Nowadays, with our largely sedentary lifestyles, most of us suffer from tendons that are a little bit too tight. And that becomes part of our control, part of our ego. And then swapping around again. And then the other side. And then just back to the middle. And just hands on the ground and just feel that like an energetic play between the hands. Feeling that the ground is a little bit moving. Obviously, it's not, so it's obviously coming from inside you. I want to exaggerate it. The energy moving around inside my torso will give the impression that my hands are moving on the ground a little bit. We'd like that same feeling in the feet when we're standing. The looseness in the sacrum is allowing play between the 2 feet. So this is the sense in which the ground ungrounds. That beautiful phrase of Heidegger's. So the ground is always the ground, but if you can relax into it, then it will allow you to open up inside, internally. And until that happens, we're never really single weighted. We're holding on too much. But the ground is always the ground. I mean, but it ungrounds me. So I can just completely rely on the ground. I don't need to create my own ground inside. That's just tension. That's what we're trying to get rid of. And obviously, is all that's required is deep trust. And that's what we tend to lack. That's the ego, really. The ego is just lack of trust, lack of faith. And then back up. And now let's just finish with a bit of this one. So we're just really feeling that ungrounding. It's almost like the ground is just really wobbly. You know those boards that've got like a half a sphere underneath? Nitsan used to use those, you know, you balance on it. It's why people like surfers, they're just so stable when they're on the ground, because they can just keep their balance when the ground disappears. So there's a sense in which this action is buoying me up. I'm always threatening to tumble forwards. But another sense that I can just relax and release down through this. So my sacrum is getting more loose, it's hanging more heavily. My tail just feels like it's really swinging. It's so loose. And then you get the same sense here. But this is just like an anti-gravity that's just pulling this one up as gravity is pulling this one down. So there's something's happening here. Okay, right.